Hey guys, welcome back. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Welcome back to this week's gun store vlog. Now, like always, I'm going to start off with some cool inventory stuff, and then we will get into the question of the week. And the question of the week is going to revolve around selling your accessories and ammunition and extra magazines with your firearm when you bring them into a gun store. Is it a good idea? Are you going to get the most profit, or are you going to maximize your return on those the most when you do that? Why or why not? We'll get into that. Anyway, we'll go ahead and jump into it now. Now guys, like always, if you don't care about this inventory stuff, just scroll on down to the comment section and I will have pinned to the top a comment with the timestamp for the question of the week, so you can go ahead and scroll down there, click on that timestamp and bypass all the inventory stuff. Alright, we sort of have a surplus theme this week, but you guys remember on last week's vlog I had the Israeli conversion Mauser. This is an unconverted, unmolested Mauser. Actually made in Germany during the Second World War, and this is the state it's in today. So this is a vet bringback made by CE44 code CE, which was J.P. Sauer, and made in 1944. Now every single serial number on this is matching down to the firing pin, the stock, the handguard, the barrel bands, everything, and it does have the original finish. It is H marked on the stock, H standing for air, which was the German Army. Of course, if you found one with an L, that would be Luftwaffe for Air Force, or K for Kriegsmarine. That was the Navy. The reason that they used codes like this was to throw off the Allies as to who is manufacturing firearms for the German military. Keep in mind, we're coming off the Treaty of Versailles at the beginning of the war, when Germany was not allowed to be rearming. And then throughout the war, the factories did not want the Allies to know where the guns were coming from, of course, because they would be primary targets for bombing raids and stuff like that. So if you end up with a Mauser or a Luger or a P38, you are going to find a code for the manufacturer. There's databases online to tell you who that code is. But anyway, very, very cool pieces of history. Another one I have here is a pretty uncommon one. This is an Arisaka Type 38 carbine chambered in 6.5mm. Now these are pretty scarce as well. An interesting thing about this is the chrysanthemum. Let's see if you can see they're okay with the focus. The chrysanthemum there, which was the imperial marking for Emperor Hirohito in Japan, that was basically his property mark. Anything with that chrysanthemum on it basically meant that it was the property of the emperor. And then after the war, as part of the treaty deal, MacArthur ordered that anybody that had a bringback or a captured Arisaka had to deface or remove the chrysanthemum, or mum as collectors call it, to basically take it out of the property ship of the emperor, because it was disgraceful to have the emperor's property in the hands of the enemy, especially lowly corporals and privates and things like that. So this was partially defaced. There's kind of one little, there's sort of a stake mark in either direction kind of crossing it out, but I would say, you know, 90% of it is still very much intact. Now this example is all matching except for the bolt, which is pretty common when these things would be re-arsenaled. Also, upon surrender with German guns and Japanese guns and stuff like that, typically what you would have is the Americans, kind of in the way to take them out of service, is they would pull the bolt out, throw the bolts in one pile, throw the rifles in another, and then when the GIs would go back to pick up a war trophy or anything like that, they would just pick up one rifle from one stack and one bolt from the other, put the two back together. They didn't really care about matching numbers or anything like that, and then take it home. So a lot of GI bring back Arisakas and Mauser, K98 Mausers, typically you can find usually in all matching condition except for the bolt, which would usually match itself, which is what we have here. Now that Mauser I just showed you was all 100% matching, so it came back as it was manufactured. Here's another interesting one. This is a West German SIG P226. Now everybody's familiar with the SIG 226, but these have been made, this one particularly was made in 1990. I believe SIG started making them in the mid-80s, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to brush up on my history on that. But collectors love the West German SIGs. That's of course that these were made in Germany before their Planty was established, where they started making them here. So this one is in phenomenal condition, and it has the original box and paperwork and everything, but just really, really cool firearms. Really cool, well made. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the question of the week, and that is going to revolve around when you bring your firearm into a gun store. What are some things, like, should you bring in your accessories, your ammunition, your magazines? Are you going to maximize? Are you going to get a lot in return compared to what you paid for them for those items when you go to sell it into a gun store? Now, first and foremost, this goes without saying, and it's pretty obvious that when you make a decision to go sell your firearm or anything to a gun store, they're then going to have to turn around and sell that at a profit. Of course, everybody knows that. So compared to selling the firearm to the end user, your neighbor, a friend, somebody you met online, versus selling it to a gun store, you are obviously going to make more money when you're selling it to the end user, because obviously the gun store is going to then have to turn around and sell it to the end user, and they need to make money or it's not worth their time. Typically what you are getting in the trade-off for that is a couple things. One, you're getting the security of knowing that it's going to a gun store, and you know, when that gun store sells your firearm, they will be doing a background check on the person that they're selling it to, so you can be rest assured you know it's not going to a felon or any prohibited person like that. Also, it's an easy transaction. You don't have to worry about taking photos, putting it online, waiting for a buyer to contact you, meet somebody in the parking lot that you might not know, and you have to worry about that risk of them robbing you or anything like that. So kind of the peace of mind, the easy transaction, and the knowing where the firearm is going to be and that it's going to end up in the hands of somebody who legally passed a background check. So for some people, they're willing to take a lesser value on their firearm for the trade-off of those benefits. But some people would rather say, okay, I will do the work myself, therefore make more money. Time is money on both ends, so that's just how that works. So keep in mind, when you sell the firearms to a gun store, whether you're selling it with an AR-15 that has an EOTech on it, or a Surefire light, or a forward hand grip, or maybe you have 10 magazines or 1,000 rounds of ammunition, the gun store is going to have to turn around and sell all of that to make a profit. Now, every gun store is going to be different. Every gun store has a different market and a clientele, and actually I would be really interested to hear. I know a lot of other gun store employees and gun store owners watch these vlogs, and they send me emails and write stuff down in the comment section. So I would like to know sort of what I'm getting into here, what other people who work in gun stores, how you feel about this. But in our store, actually, I don't like it when people bring in firearms with a ton of accessories like holsters and magazines or optics or lights, because I know we're not going to make a deal. I'm going to put you in the mindset of the buyer. Let's go ahead and go over a scenario here. So say there's a standard Daniel Defense AR-15 that brand new is about $1,500, okay? And you really want that Daniel Defense AR-15 rifle that's $1,500, but your budget really only says you can spend about $1,000, maybe $1,200 tops, like that's it. You just can't afford that rifle brand new, so you're looking for it used. Lo and behold, a gun store that you go to gets that rifle used, and they put it up on the store for $1,000. I'm just gonna make simple round numbers here. Put it up on the shelf for $1,000. It's the rifle you want, it's lightly used, you come in, you buy it, you got your used gun for $1,000, perfect. Now, say that same gun store gets in that same used Daniel Defense AR, but it's got an EOTech on it, it's got a Surefire flashlight, it comes with 5 magazines, and I don't know, I'd say it comes with a nice sling of some sort or anything, and the gun store owner puts $1,500 on it. Okay, now you are priced back out of that gun. Furthermore, you didn't really care about the EOTech and the flashlight and the sling and the extra magazines. You just want the gun, and your budget is allowing you to get the gun. So when you sell me that Daniel Defense AR-15, I have to keep that in mind. And I know that if I'm going to sell the gun, I'm going to price a lot of people out by putting a whole bunch of stuff on it, the stuff that you like and the way you built it out for yourself. I'm going to have to price it in a way to where I need to get my money back on all that stuff that I paid you for. But also, I don't want to push people out of the market who are interested in the gun. And a lot of times, like when we first opened, I would keep lights and lasers and stuff like that on the firearm, and people would routinely, and then I would, you know, raise the price above what just the standard platform would typically sell for used, and people would routinely ask me, hey, can you take the stuff off and sell it to me at a cheaper price? Like, everybody would ask that. So it then got to a point here where when people bring stuff in, I usually just price it as the price of the firearm, ignoring all the stuff that's on it. And then if the customer wants to sell it to me that way, you know, typically if they've got cheap stuff on it like NC Star, and maybe they have a couple magazines and stuff like that, it's never a big deal, and they just say, okay, just take it all. But if somebody's got like a $400 optic on it and a $250 flashlight, like they've got more in the accessories on the gun than they have in the gun itself, I know we are never going to make a deal, and I'm usually going to insult them, and then I have to explain to them exactly what I'm explaining to you on this vlog, which is why I thought I would kind of talk about this topic. Now, the alternative, a lot of people would say is, okay, well, why don't you make somebody an offer for the firearm with all the stuff on it, you know, making them an offer for all the stuff that's on it as well, and then sell the firearm stripped, and then sell all the other parts separately. Well, now keep in mind about this. So like we said, time is money. You brought in a firearm by itself, you have an EOTech on it, you have that flashlight, you have a nice sling, you know, let's just say we'll leave it at that. And maybe you have 10 magazines. So now I've gone from having to find a buyer for that one AR-15 to having to find 5 different buyers for everything you have. I'm going to have to talk to people about your optic and about your flashlight. I'm going to have to market or advertise those items on our Facebook page and stuff like that. I'm going to have to go through the time of running the transaction. So, which I'm not complaining about. I mean, we are a retail store and we are here to sell stuff, sure. But the amount of time it will take for me to part out everything on your gun, it's going to take time, and it's not only going to take time, actual physical time to move the inventory, but the amount of time that my money will be tied up in that stuff while it waits to move. Also, go on eBay or Gunbroker or anything like that and see what used optics and flashlights and things like that go for. They really, really lose a lot of money on them when you buy them new. Typically optics, good quality optics, are selling for 50% or less, I've seen, on eBay and Gunbroker compared to what people pay for them new. Now, we are a store that does not deal heavily in optics. We carry the minimum selection of stuff that people usually like to look at. Like, so we have some EOTechs and a couple aim points, and then mainly we have like the $100 Sightmark type stuff. You know, just the general selection that you find at most stores. But there are a lot of gun stores that might carry a large selection of optics and accessories and stuff like that, and they may be more excited about buying that type of inventory because they have clientele coming in all the time looking for it, which is why I'm partly interested to hear other people's perspective on this one. And then getting back to that, the whole parting out reason, you know, taking the time to sell the firearm and the optic and the light and all that, I could throw that back on the seller and to say, okay, and this is usually what I say, you know, I will make you an offer for the firearm and take all that stuff off of it, because, you know, my offer might be a little bit higher, but it's not going to be nearly what you're going to want for all of it. And usually the response to me is, I don't want to take the time to put this on eBay or Gunbroker and then find a buyer for 5 different items on my AR. I just want to get rid of it all now. And I turn around and say, well, I want the same thing. You know, it's going to take me a lot of time to turn around and sell all of that too. So, you know, it goes both ways. And again, I don't want to come across like I'm complaining about that, but you have to, when you're structuring your costs with your employees and your own time, you have to take that amount of time into consideration. You have 24 hours in the day, and sure, I would be happy to try and make money on an EOTech or a Surefire light or something like that, but I have to be realistic about what I'm going to sell it for, how long it's going to sit on my shelf, and the amount of time I'm going to have to spend with customers showing them the item and talking to them about it. If I don't know anything about your Surefire or your EOTech or whatever optic you have, I have to learn about it so that I can talk intelligently to people who ask me questions about it as well. So all of that very quickly in just one transaction that I could just sell your gun and be done with it. Now I've extended that in a multiple of 5 different transactions that I have to consider. All of that's going to bring down the offer on the gun too, because it's really got to incentivize me in terms of how much return I can make on it to spend my time on it. Now, the next common thing that people will bring in with firearms is ammunition. Now, we don't, and this is the policy of a lot of different places too, we do not purchase pre-owned ammunition. In some cases, what we will do is if somebody has a really rare fire, I'm going to talk about, what I'm talking about now so far up into this point is like the modern stuff, and I'll get into collectibles here in a minute. But if somebody brings in a really uncommon rifle and maybe they've got a box of ammunition with it that's really tough to find, you know, I'll put it with the gun, but I'm not going to sell it separately, because there's always the risk about knowing the condition of the ammunition in terms of how was it stored, Was it stored in a really humid area? I mean, is it gonna be a click bang ammunition? I mean, has it corroded? Do I have to take the time? If you're giving me a case of 1,000 rounds, I don't have the time to sit there and open every single box and inspect every round of ammunition. And when I am selling this stuff to the customers, you know, keep in mind a projectile, a bullet, is like a small contained explosion. I mean, if the casing is corroded, if the powder has moisture in it, it can really affect the safety of the shooter's experience when they buy it from me and go to use it. So I don't really like to take the liability, and I don't have the time to inspect every round that comes in. So we usually tell people, you know, I'm sorry, we don't buy ammunition. Now, a lot of times people will have a firearm. They maybe bought one gun, they wanted to go shoot with their friends. They never used it over 3 years, and it just kind of sat around, and they still have the 3 boxes of ammo they bought with it back when they first purchased it. A lot of times, you know, people will say, well, I don't want the ammo anyway, I'll just give it to you with the gun. That's fine. I don't turn around, like I said, I do not turn around and resell that ammo. We just go out to the range and shoot it. So, you know, I know a lot of other gun stores have policies similar to that. Same policy goes, once you purchase ammo from us, we will not take it back in a return. Also, it's the fear of, are there hand loads in there? I mean, again, how is it stored? Anything like that. I can't in good faith turn around and sell that to somebody who's going to go out on the range and shoot it themselves and maybe, you know, potentially have a dangerous scenario there. Now, in those cases where I have really rare, I've gotten in, like, you know, that Japanese era sock, I've gotten in old military guns with old ammunition, and usually I will sell it along as collectible ammunition, and I will be very upfront with the buyer to say, listen, I don't know the status of this ammunition. I recommend you do not fire it, keep it as collectible ammo. And usually in cases like that, it's like 5 or 10 rounds on a stripper clip, so I can quickly inspect it. If it looks horrible and trashed, I'll get rid of it in some way, but I usually pull the bullets and empty the powder. And actually Andy, who works for me, he reloads and he takes brass and stuff like that. So I usually just give that stuff to him, and he does what he will with it. Now let's talk about accessories with old, rare, and collectible firearms, such as if you have, say you have an old Luger and you've got 6 magazines with it, okay? Or maybe you've got a 1903 A4 Springfield rifle with its original scope. You're saying, well, you know, optics don't add a lot of value. Okay, and in conditions of rare and collectible things where the accessories that those came with 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago are in and of themselves very rare and collectible, we definitely will offer more money for those. Like a Luger magazine is $100. That's what they retail for new. So if somebody brings in, and I've had it happen where somebody brought me a Luger, they had 3 magazines with it. I made them an offer considering, I think I figured out if the magazines were about $100 a piece, I figured out about $80 a piece is what I offered. Plus the gun. So yeah, I offer that along because those are easy to sell with the gun, and collectors will find value in that stuff. But if somebody brings in a Glock 19 with 5 magazines, I don't really alter my offer. I might throw them an extra 10 bucks because, again, the person coming in to buy that Glock, they will look at those magazines as an incentive if I have it priced as a price of a used Glock. But I mean, when you come in looking for a used gun, are you thinking to yourself, man, I want that gun with 5 magazines? You know, if you want those spare magazines, you'll just go buy them separately. You might not want them all rolled into the cost. So I have to think about the people who are going to be coming in. Am I pricing people out when I'm tacking on all this extra money for extra accessories that they may not have wanted? But I know I'm digressing on a previous point I already made. One final thing that I will leave you with, and this is kind of funny, is original packaging. So if somebody, and I'll tell you this is kind of funny, if somebody comes in with a used Glock 19, and 5 magazines and nothing else, say it's a Gen 4, they don't have the back straps, the box, the paperwork, or any of that, I will offer more money for the Glock 19 and its original packaging with 2 magazines than I will for a Glock 19 without any of its original packaging and 5 magazines. It's really, really weird, but people love original boxes and cases and stuff like that, and they will pay more for them, especially older collectible things. If you have an old Browning A5 and you have the original box, that original box can easily add a couple $100s to the price of the gun when you go to resell it, because collectors love the original packaging. Not even collectors, people who are getting into newer firearms, they love the original packaging. There's also something to be said about when you walk in to a gun store and you see that used gun in the case and it's sitting nicely in its original box and everything looks clean and organized, it has the appearance of being so lightly used, as opposed to the gun that may be in the same condition but just sitting on a shelf by itself with a few mags sitting next to it. It just has more of that look of old, and you know, it's been owned for so long that the previous owners lost the material and all of that. So it's a lot about the optics as well. So I will leave you guys with that. It's all about when you take your firearm into a gun store and you have hundreds or thousands of dollars in accessories you're trying to push with your gun sale. If the gun shop owner is not too excited about it, those are some of the reasons why. So, like I said, I will leave you with that. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comment section. Also, I would love to hear other people's impressions of this. Let me know your thoughts on that, especially if you're a gun store owner yourself, or maybe you've tried to sell accessories and ammo to a gun store, and what were some of your experiences? Did the store pay you more for them? Did you feel like they made you a low offer? Let me know your thoughts on that as well. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel, and also hit that bell notification button so you know when I am posting new content. I will go ahead and sign off with that, guys. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV, and I will see you next time.